Hello, and welcome to Education Action News. I am Stacy Marthy.
And I am Brenda Michaels.
And here are tonight's top stories. We have the history of schooling, what we need to know. We also have a panel of excellent, very well-educated teachers coming in to talk to us about schools and schooling today.
As well as a panel discussion on the useful sources of teachers and how much do you know. And also, we're going to discuss equity and inequity in our school systems.
For our first segment tonight, we have the story of Blake Allister coming in to talk to us about the history of schools. Blake?
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming in.
Okay.
Hello, Blake. We have a few questions concerning what are the challenges historically facing schools?
Well, one of our original challenges was like from the colonial times to the early decades of the 19th century, most of our teachers were men. When women finally started in, they were usually hired because they were able to be paid less than men. What really started like the main challenge of schools was segregation, was what Jefferson's new vision of schooling. What Jefferson proposed was that 3 years of schooling would be free to any white non-slave youth, and only the best of the best would be picked out because they would become our leaders of our country.
So you mentioned segregation and different things with Jefferson. When minorities were allowed into schools, were there any problems that they faced?
Actually, with Jefferson's vision of his new schooling, African Americans and Native Americans weren't planning his vision, so they weren't allowed to go to these schools. So another main challenge that was faced for Native Americans was because of their education-wise, they were forced into mission schools. Their goal was to assimilate them into white society, where the model that was given for these mission schools was kill the Indian and save the man. This also kind of affects the Mexicans as well, because they were just seen as peons of Indian roots, so they were also under the white man's authority. And then going back into Native Americans, there were many laws that were put into place that restricted them from meeting for educational purposes. Their slave owners weren't allowed to educate them, and if they were caught being educated, it could lead to death.
Now, okay, you mentioned assimilation. I read somewhere assimilation in this term Americanization in reference to immigrants who came in during the 1900s. Do you have any information on that?
Actually, on one of the articles you can look up, there's a Native American timeline that actually strictly goes through their entire process of how they were moved off from their lands and then pushed further and further into their their reservations, and then what they did was the mission schools is they placed them outside of reservations, so that way they could pull the Native Americans away from their families to make it easier for them to force them to give up their values.
I know you're speaking a lot of the Native American experience, but I know I've read other places about, what can I say, how do you say this? Triumphs made by these groups, in terms of the Mexican American population and demanding for their rights. So there's an article on this I read where they're talking about developing Catholic schools and also getting and protesting for teachers that reflect their racial identity.
That's so interesting that you mentioned that. So I read an article about immigrants coming in, actually the horrifying treatment that they had to deal with within schools, because immigrants weren't American enough. Similar to Native Americans or Mexican Americans who came in. So if they spoke their native language, their mouth might be washed out with soap. They would have to wear a sign saying that they were stupid, publicly shaming them to everybody else. And some parents were actually okay with this because it would make them American, but large communities were very upset with the treatment of their people within our schools.
And the sad thing is that's all true, and those are kind of challenges that we faced in the past. And so I want to say that schools have gotten better, but the issue is there's still many challenges that are facing our schools today.
Interesting. Breaking news. We have Carolyn in the field, and she actually has more on contemporary issues in school today. Cameron.
Thank you, Stacy. I'm Cameron Lobby, out in the field of Morganton Elementary School.
Today in education, we are facing too many issues, from charter schools to diversity to funding. And let's start with the charter school problem. That's one of the biggest issues facing us right now in education. Under the current administration of Betsy DeVos, we can expect to see charter schools getting funded millions of dollars for educational funding that should be going to public schools, but are going to be filtered into private and charter schools. And not only are charter schools receiving private funding, but they're also receiving public funding. So now our public schools can expect to see a decrease in all funds that will go to after-school programs. And these after-school programs are what American families depend on for their children. Now, I know that's a serious issue, but it's not a serious issue to Betsy DeVos. You know what is a serious issue though? Diversity in our schools. As you heard from our historian that we had, Blake Allister, he talked about marginalized groups and how education is facing a huge problem historically, or faced a huge problem historically, but today that problem has gotten even worse. We are Brown versus Ed, and DeVos's recommendation of that is meritocracy. Now, we all know her qualifications aren't the best, but she's as unqualified in prescribing educational advice as she is in being the Secretary of Education. Meritocracy is a myth that hard work can get you anywhere in life. But as you can see from the numerous educational articles out there, there's a huge problem facing children, brown, black, and non-native English-speaking children, because institutes of higher education as well as private institutes of higher education are accepting at lower and lower rates marginalized and children of brown, black, as well as non-native speaking children demographics. And that's a huge problem. But as we can always expect, our Secretary of Education under this current administration is just saying work harder. Is it really work harder or just stop working?
Thank you so much, Blake and Cameron, for those wonderful interest pieces. Now we have a special panel of teachers coming in to talk to us about school and schooling. Panel?
Hello, my name is Jennifer Charlotte, and I am an 8th grade English teacher at Morrison High School.
Hello, I'm Irene Perez, and I'm a high school teacher for physics.
And I'm Parker Les, and I'm also a high school teacher for physics.
Now, how do we feel about schools and schooling? It's a broad topic. I would agree.
Well, for like one thing, what I've like noticed with schools is it seems to be like there's this like increase of teachers that are abandoning like the best practices that they could use for their students' needs due to fit like increasing standards for these state tests.
And I know I've been watching a couple of YouTube videos, like, my students, get me into YouTube, shows me videos, clips, and there was a fascinating one how they like education but hate schools. And that's unfortunate that education and schools are not being seen as synonymous or even connected anymore. And it's like, what are schools doing incorrectly? Like, what are we not doing in the schools that education is moving or happening outside of that, which should be happening outside of that, but happening outside of that in like a negative way, like schools are not fostering that environment.
Yeah, now that you mentioned YouTube, I also saw this video that it was named "Do Schools Kill Creativity?" I think it was. Yeah. That we're focusing too much on like math and science and not so much on students' interest. Like, I know in that specific video they were talking about this girl who they said that she needed additional resources because she couldn't sit still. And then the doctor who examined her said, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with your daughter, she's just a dancer, take her to a dance school." And we just seem to be ignoring that students have their own interests. They come in with things that they like and they dislike, and we force them to learn all these core curriculum, but we don't foster their creativity and give them more, which is what schools should be doing. It should be making a rounded individual, not like someone just
boxed
going
in.
Yeah.
And that way it definitely goes back to this fabulous book written by Mike Rose, Why School, where he talks about education in schools and teachers being gatekeepers. And that's something I would never want to be as an educator, as a gatekeeper, keeping students away from those things that they need to succeed, as well as like just fostering an environment that they feel comfortable in. And as a humanities teacher myself, I do that. I try to not be a gatekeeper in my literature that I choose, getting them to think outside the box, as well as thinking about something's brought up in school that I see as an issue, is marginalized students, brown, black, and non-English speaking students are always treated as like sub-students or others in our school system. And that's what I try to get them out of that bubble. Appreciate, don't just put them to the side, put them in the corner, put them as an other.
All right, I think that panel makes an excellent point. Now, one topic that I want to go off of, you talked about teaching just the basics. Now, I read this somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, that sounds like a teaching philosophy called essentialism. Are there any other options?
There are. I know that I identify as an existential progressive. And with that being said, I'm more along the lines of moving and processing, as well as seeing a change and actively seeing a change in my school system, but also viewing the student as an individual and how I can help them individually rather than viewing them as some product that needs to fit into a group, basically one-on-one interaction, reading them where they need me.
Yeah, I believe in the same thing, existentialism and progressivism. That it's more focused on the teacher helping the student become a self-thinker, making choices on their own, and then giving them the opportunity to explore their interests, that we give them the skills to go forth and find things that they want to do for themselves.
I, on the other hand, I tend to view with the progressive realist ideas, I tend to think of the teacher as being this guide that leads the students to where they have to learn. And then I also believe that it's in order for these students to learn, they have to be able to physically interact with the world around them to be able to understand the concepts.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Now, one final question. Clearly, there have been many different sources and things that you have used to grow as a teacher. Can you name some of those sources for people watching, and also how you plan on using them more as teachers?
With the YouTube sources, well, that just means kids where they are right now technologically. And there's an abundance of resources out there, from TED Talks to slam poetry. As an English teacher myself, I enjoy the slam poems that speak about education, but also teachers and our experience in education. Because I think students always see teachers as a military, authoritative figure, and when they see slam poems that talk about what I do as a teacher, which is a fabulous one by Taylor Malley. I believe he did a fabulous one talking about teachers and how people, when you show up at the dinner party, it's oh, she's going to talk about education, or he's going to talk about education. And seeing teachers as more than that. I challenge students to think, and that's what I enjoy doing, and that's why I went into this profession. So that's one of my resources.
Edutopia is also another good source. It's an educational blog for teachers to look up. There's a lot of useful articles that talk about engaging your students and then ways to assess them and just little tips that teachers should know. That's good.
Another great resource that I found was Educational Foundations. Actually, I have a copy here by Grace Huerta, where in this book it goes super in depth on topics about teaching philosophies. This is kind of how I found about the ideas and started to develop my own teaching philosophy and where I stand. It also goes into a bunch of social changes that have been made, where some were really effective and then some that were supposed to be effective that didn't turn out very well, like No Child Left Behind. It also goes into a lot of the problems that are still around in schools today, like how a lot of minorities are kind of put into schools that are low income, and then how they're not really able to rise above because teachers don't really want to work in these schools for a lower income. Even though how you mentioned the Taylor Malley video, which I thought was very inspirational, on how he talks about how it's not really what the teacher makes financially, it's about what the teacher can make or do to make these changes and help develop these students' lives.
This panel has been lovely and given us a lot of information. My final question for you all is what your schooling experiences were like when you were students and how you reflect on them and plan on using them as teachers.
Well, as was said earlier, the brown and black schools and non-English speaking student schools were schools that I attended, like low-income schools. And I definitely saw a shift in that, like how the presentation went. In my middle school, we had metal detectors. You knew it was a low-income school just from the outside. The environment was very, very, very authoritative with all the teachers. High discipline, high consequence, or any action or anything considered out of studently or studious behavior. And that environment made it, even though metal detectors just make you feel more safe, made it feel more threatening. And I didn't feel like a student, I felt like a criminal in that setup. While in my high school, it was a Title I high school as well, so it was a low-income high school. And with that, there were no metal detectors, so I didn't feel as criminalized. And the environment was more welcoming, and teachers actually spoke. And I had art teachers who spoke to history teachers, and history teachers spoke to science teachers. So it was a lot of collaboration going on at those schools. We had a bee, a honeycomb, like little thing on the roof garden, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed going to my high school because I felt like it was collaboration going on, openness, and it's just a good experience there. There's no reason why low-income school has to criminalize kids. Like, just because you don't have funding doesn't mean you don't have to have humanity. So that's a huge thing.
Yeah, I had a similar experience in middle school. It was a low-income middle school. It was like 15 minutes away from my house, and our teachers were something. They didn't treat us like people. It's really sad to say, but they didn't. You could tell that they didn't really consider you much, and that they didn't think you were going to do much with your education. I had a teacher in one case that threw a chair at his students, and before that, my sister also had the same teacher. He kicked out a student and assaulted them, and the school rehired him because that was all the money we had. That was all a low-income school can afford, is teachers who were aggressive and don't care about students. Which, it was middle school, that was like, I was 10, Lord. I found that really sad. I didn't think there should have been a reason why teachers should be that way, why teachers have to be that way. But I guess part of the reason is they don't have support. Their classes are full with 30 plus students. They don't have support from the administration. My school didn't have textbooks, so on top of having to teach lessons, teachers had to go out and find their own resources and bring those in. So didn't foster a healthy environment for teachers or students. My high school experience, though, was much more wonderful.
Yeah.
I came from New York City, and they have a program where you can test into public schools that are considered, well, they're good high schools. And I was in one of those high schools, and it's a public school where it receives public funding, but they also had their own, I don't know what they called it, but it's like they had their own funding where they went out and got funding for themselves. It was a great program. There was rich material. We were challenged, and I got college course credit. It was a diverse environment, which it was the first one like that. Most of them were not diverse at all. It was white majority, but my high school was diverse. And the teachers were welcoming, they were open, they talked to you like you were a person, which is interesting that in schools students aren't treated as what they are, which is they are people.
My school was like, they tried to hide the fact that we were a poor school. Like, they had like a brand new track field put in, they updated like the football field, but all the money that was coming for that was them taking away the funds for all of the humanities courses. So like, by the time you got done with middle school, you were able to take maybe like one art class, and that was about it. Everything else was just the straight math, science, history, and like maybe one extracurricular if you were lucky. But like my main experience, like I didn't really pay much attention to a lot of the teachers because it just kind of seemed like they only really cared about the students that they had that were their best students or the ones that they picked as their favorite students, although teachers shouldn't do that. But like my experience that was most memorable to me in high school was my physics professor, and he's one of the main reasons why I wanted to like start teaching, is like he was the ones that showed me that like I had potential and that there was something I could do, because until around his class I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to go to college for. So thanks to my professor, like I want to like kind of grow off like what he's shown me, and like I want to be a professor that's able to create a classroom that is safe and show these students that there are things that they can do, even if other people have like given up on you. There's something that you can do and accomplish.
Great, thank you so much for sharing and being here. But such a wonderful panel.
Hello and welcome back to the newsroom. I'm Brenda Michaels.
And I'm Stacy Marthy.
And this is Education Action News. Now, we have an interesting person coming in, and she's a history teacher at Sandy Oaks High School, and she wasn't here for our panel discussion, but wants to contribute. Her name is Elizabeth Smith. Hello, Elizabeth. So, hello, Elizabeth.
Hello, Brenda. Hello, Stacy. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming in. We just want to ask you very briefly about your school philosophy. Our panel discussion was discussing that.
Yes, I saw a little bit of that discussion. I am a progressivist. I believe that students need to have some control over their classroom, and they should definitely be allowed to look more into their interests and their creativity. There is a TED Talk by Peter Benson. He talks about students having sparks. This idea that there's something that everyone has that they're interested in. Some have more than one thing, but they're often not asked about it in schools. And in the students that they interviewed, they were high school students, and many of the students said that they were never asked what their spark was. That's insanely heartbreaking to me. I can't even imagine going through your entire life and never having anyone ask what your interests are. And that's something I very much think that needs to happen in schools, and really doesn't as much as it should right now. Also, seeing the panel, I noticed that they talked a bit about essentialism, or other teaching philosophies. Another one is essentialism, and that focuses a lot on the basics. So I know many of the teachers on your panel talked about only learning the basics in school because funding was taken away for other humanities. That is extremely sad to me, and it happens in schools all over.
Well, could you tell us a little bit about your experience as a student that led you to want to be a teacher?
Well, I was lucky in my schooling. I went to a relatively wealthy school. It was a very large school district, which meant they got a lot of money from taxes. So I had a lot of different options. I fell in love with teaching, though, from outside interests. I really loved history and social studies, and I was encouraged to pursue that career, which I was very lucky to do, and I know not all students get that, and I want to be that person for them. Rita Pearson also had a TED Talk, and in it she says that every child needs a champion, stating that many students don't get a teacher who's looking out for them. Many teachers today, it's sad to say, only are teachers for their subject, but not so much for the students, having the idea that they don't pay me to like the students that I'm teaching. That's extremely sad. The students might not get attention to their interests or someone who likes them anywhere in school. We need to be their champions. We need to be there for them and tell them that they are important, and tell them that they are strong and that they can do whatever they want to do.
And that's nice. That's really good to hear. I know that our panel spoke in depth about the marginalized student experience, like Black, Brown, and non-native speaking English student experience. And how do you feel as a teacher you're combating that in your classroom, or just addressing that issue in general in our school system?
I'm really happy that you brought that up, because it brings me to a topic that I would also like to talk about, which is equity and inequity within schools. So the way schools that are broken up today, it's usually by different districts, which means they're cut up and students from certain districts will go to specific schools. This also means that the schools who get funding from their taxes, if you live in a low-income area, you're getting less funding. So the low-income schools will have less programs, they'll have worse teachers, as one of your teachers mentioned, ones who are aggressive and should not be hired, and it's horrifying that they are given any power in any sense of the word. But you get schools like this all over where people who are not qualified, who shouldn't be teachers, who don't even want to be teachers, are being hired because they don't have enough money to hire people who are qualified, or those who are qualified don't want to go there because they don't want to be in such a bad area or such a low-income area. And it's so sad, but people don't know. There's no one currently in our administration who's going to try to stop this, which is teachers. We need to build up and work on doing it. And it kind of, another part of my teaching philosophy is a social reconstructionism, where you teach your students how to create change within your own community. And I think that's super important right now. Students need to understand that they have the power, and we need to know that certain schools are not getting money that they need to have because they are in a certain area. That's just so ridiculous. Like, well, no, we're not giving you the funding that you clearly need to buy textbooks or to hire qualified people or to not treat your students like criminals because you live in this area. That's not how it should work. That's not how it should be. It's extremely ridiculous.
And we completely agree with you here at Education Action News. And thank you so much, Elizabeth, for sharing your thoughts on that.
Thank you.